Right, welcome back, everybody. Debbie Rogers and I first connected, as Paul said, back in 2020 when we both spoke at the .gov conference that Paul referred to earlier on. I was very grateful to Paul for just saying how both our talks went down, but I think there was barely a dry eye in the house when Debbie had finished speaking. But her passion is incredible, and as she'll share with her story, she sadly lost Sean, her brother, to suicide in 2019. In the same year we lost Jordan, and Sean was also 34. So we immediately had a bond and something we've shared in common ever since. And Debbie's become a really good friend. And of course, with COVID and everything, we've only just met for the first time today. So I'm not going to steal any more thunder from Debbie, but other than say, please give a huge round of applause to Debbie Rogers from Sean's Place.
Really high getting up here. Please bear with me as well. I've not done a conference like this before, so I am an absolute nervous wreck. But I've got some lovely people who travelled up from Liverpool with me, so thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely introduction as well, Steve. I lost my brother Sean to suicide 2 years ago, and there wasn't any support available at the time. There was national organisations we were signposted to, but they didn't have capacity to help. And then I met Steve, and we've not had a chance to really talk that much because we're both so busy with what we've done afterwards, after us, obviously the loss that we both had. But Steve became my support. I think just knowing somebody who was on that journey too, and unless you're in this world, you don't really know about the world that you find yourself in. You can't get out of it. You're stuck in it. You just have to deal with it as best you can. And Steve became a listening ear, somebody who really, truly understood what we're going through. And I'm just so glad that we met. And it's I feel a little bit like the underdog today, like I shouldn't really be here. I'm not a professional speaker. So I'll try my best. Please, bear in mind, I am talking about suicide bereavement and the loss that I endured with my brother. So it may be a little bit sad. I'm going to try not to cry. So please, no one in the audience cry because you'll make me cry. But it is about hope as well. And we'll talk about what I did after that and how we did it, and hopefully inspire some of you guys to look at, the support available in your community and if you can also make a difference as well. So here goes. So my name's Debbie Rogers, and as I mentioned before, the reason that I'm speaking today is because sadly I'm also in the Suicide Bereavement Club. I've been in choirs and everything else, and I've been in clubs. This was definitely not a club I ever wanted to be in, never thought I would be, and definitely would get out of it as quickly as I could, if I could. But the reason why I've been asked to speak today, obviously there's so many of us in this room, I'm sure, that have lost somebody to suicide, but it's because the pain and the torture of losing someone this way can take over your life. But I sort of said, no, this isn't going to happen to anybody else. Sean was too important to me to sit back and let this be the end. And I said that I'm going to give it a go. I'm just little old Debbie from Liverpool, school administrator, no experience. But if I don't do it, who the hell will? So I give it a go. And thankfully, I've created such a beautiful organisation out of it called Sean's Place, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a little bit. So yeah, bear with me. Tell you a little bit more about Sean, who was my brother, and also what we did next as a result of losing Sean. I've lost the clicker. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about Sean's Place in a little while. But first, I just want to tell you a bit more about the man behind it. This is my lovely brother, Sean. I know everyone will say that their family is the best, but Sean truly was my best mate, really. There was only 14 months between us, so people used to think we were boyfriends and girlfriends, especially on holiday, and I used to just play along with it, especially when Sean wanted to cop off with the girls. I was like, hey, it's me fella. Sean would go mad, never forgive me for it, but we were genuinely so close. He walked me down the aisle on my wedding day. That was on my graduation day, and that was just a week before Sean died. Every important milestone, he was there. he was crazy, like so funny. So like he was like our fourth child. He used to have the kids swinging off the lampshades, and we used to call them Mr. Bean because they were just characteristics. He was just so happy-go-lucky, and we were so lucky to have him. But sadly, behind all of that, Sean also really struggled with his mental health. We both had quite a traumatic childhood, and people cope differently with life events. And Sean sadly developed anxiety and depression as a result of that, which is perfectly understandable. But also anxiety and depression, you can live a reasonably, happy, normal life, and it's treatable, and there's interventions that can, help you to overcome those feelings and thoughts. But Sean didn't get the support that he needed at the time because it didn't exist. And sadly, he developed, he didn't develop PTSD. He was diagnosed with PTSD, and later that developed into psychosis, which ultimately led to Sean taking his own life. He was described as complex by the healthcare system. Sean had nurses and support workers. He was under the care of the hospital, but lived in his own flat in the community, but he had a lot of care around him. That word complex took Sean back to when he was younger, when he was bullied at school and when we had trauma at home. And he felt he was different, he was unusual, he was weird, and he could never get over that. He was like, what's complex about me? And he wasn't complex, he was just Sean, he was great. But I think those words really were unsettling for him. And he was given so much medication. It was increased, changed, swapped. They didn't know what to do with him because he was complex, so they just kept giving him medication. And these medication had awful side effects as well. So we were struggling with the physical side effects of having this medication. He didn't understand the medication as well. There was no conversation about why he was on this medication, what it did to his body, how it could help. It was just boxes of stuff that he was told to take. And obviously he did as he was told. But Sean also didn't hide away from the fact that he was struggling with mental health. Sean did talk. We always say, if you're struggling, please reach out, please talk. And he did. He spoke to those who he should have spoke to. He spoke to me, and he spoke to the healthcare professionals when he was really struggling. A couple of weeks before Sean died, Sean became very unwell. His psychosis, he couldn't decipher what was real and what wasn't. He was hearing things and seeing things that he was frightened. He was so scared about what was happening to him. So when I reached out to the healthcare professionals and said, look, Sean is becoming really, really unwell. I really need some help. I don't know how to help him. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Their answer was, well, he needs to start helping himself. He'd been under the care of this community team for 4 years, and he was coming to the end of his sort of time with them, if you like. And that was the answer. He needs to start helping himself. He's been with us 4 years. He's got to start moving on. He should have only been with us for 3, but he's had 4 years. So he was lucky to get that support by the sounds of it. So we were just trying to cope with things as best we could at home as a family. But again, I'm not a healthcare professional. I never knew what to say. Sadly, I didn't know about places like James's Place, because in Liverpool, who are an amazing suicide prevention charity, Hub of Hope, all of these amazing charities I now know of, I didn't back then. So the only thing I could do was just make sure know that he was loved, and I'd text him every day and tell him that I loved him. Probably thought I was a bit mad myself, because I'd be like, love you, are you having your breakfast, love you. It was the only thing that I knew how to help him with. And then the night that Sean would later take his life, I phoned the hospital team again, and I said, listen, I've been phoning you now for weeks. I'm really worried about my brother. Something really bad is going to happen to him. He's going to hurt himself because he doesn't know what's real. He's scared, and I'm scared. So she said, okay, on his note, it says he's fine. Said it was fine. I don't know why I'd been phoning him for 6 weeks, but it said he was fine on his note, which is why he wasn't treated as urgent. So she phoned him. She phoned me back 5 minutes later, and she said, oh, he's fine. I've just spoke to him. He's got capacity. There's not much we can do. He's got our number. He knows to phone us if he needs us. Sean died that night. There's nothing we could do. That was it. He had capacity. We now know no capacity assessment was ever undertaken, no mental health assessment. She went off Sean's tone of voice and the fact that he said he was fine, which anybody that who suffers from mental health, that is the go-to thing that they say, because it's the only thing they know to say, because they don't know how to explain how they're truly feeling. The next morning, I'm so sorry if this triggers anybody, but the next morning, I tried to phone my brother, wanted to get hold of him. I spoke to him at 11 o'clock the night before. This was 7 o'clock the next morning, and Sean would be up at that time usually, and couldn't get hold of him. So I got myself dressed and said to my husband, I'm going to drive down and check on Sean. Can't get hold of him on the phone. And he lived quite a long drive away, but something told me I had to go. And when I was getting dressed, I think I just knew. I got this gut feeling. I thought, this is it. This is it. So I got to his flat and I was banging on the door. There was no answer. I was phoning him and I could hear his phone. I thought, oh, he definitely answered his phone. And then I phoned the hospital back and I said, look, I've been phoning you for weeks and I've been telling you that my brother was really unwell. I phoned you last night. You told me that there was nothing you could do. I'm worried. I'm seriously worried. The person at the end of the phone said, well, it's nothing we can do. If you're scared, you need to phone the police if you think he's done something. But obviously I didn't want to phone the police because I knew that would make it real. That would mean that it has happened. And, and I knew that it was set off a series of events. But I phoned the police and we found my brother. 15 minutes after finding out, the worst thing that have ever happened to me, the most traumatic experience in my life, I was sat in the back of a police car and I was asked to give a statement. That statement would later be used in my brother's inquest, which I now know, but I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even string a sentence together. And that was the start of the suicide bereavement journey, I suppose, where all these events in this world that I suddenly found myself in would all just begin to happen without me wanting it to. So these are just some of the words that I very quickly had to learn. Don't forget, I'm just Joe Public. I'm just my brother's sister at the end of the day. But I quickly had to become a barrister overnight. A serious incident report, or a SIR, as they like to call it, was triggered by the hospital. But this took 9 weeks to take off. So there was talk about it, but then it was 9 weeks later. And this is where they talk about all the missed opportunities, or the failings, as I prefer to call them. As we mentioned before, when I was asked to give a police statement, there was a thing called an inquest, which some of you may or may not know about. But with my brothers, because there was so many missed opportunities, I was entitled to an Article 2 inquest and a pre-inquest. But I didn't know that as a normal member of the public. And so many families don't get the help and the support they need at this stage because we're not designed to know about these things. Barristers are. But luckily, this angel barrister, I can't begin to thank her enough. She decided she was going to help me pro bono, free of charge. I just paid £5,000 for my brother's funeral. That I didn't have that money saved up. Who does? Who has money saved up for a 34-year-old funeral? So she helped me for free, and we are still now 2.5 years later in the process of planning my brother's inquest. We're hoping it'll be in February, but we're still very much in this journey. But even me, families in here, reading a post-mortem report or the toxicology report, it's torturous. But there are things that as a family you have to do if you want the answers and if you want your questions to be heard. You have to sift through these processes, and it's painful, and you shouldn't have to do this alone. So as much as I don't work in this field, I really hope that moving forward that there will be better support for people who were affected by suicide to guide them through this awful journey. While we were in this process of going through all of this, as expected, there was so much pain, so much anger. The family fell apart. I fell apart. I very quickly could understand why the statistics are so high. When somebody takes their own life, the chances of somebody else taking their own life afterwards are very, very high. And I could see why, because I've got 3 beautiful children and a wonderful husband. And I wasn't scared of dying anymore. And it's the first time I ever sort of thought, well, if I die, I'll be with my brother. I'll be out of this awful world that I'm now in. I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I've never, ever felt like that before in my life. I've got so much to live for. But luckily for me, I was able to channel that pain and do something positive with it. But thousands and millions, globally can't do that. And they do go on to, sadly, take their own lives themselves, and that's why the support needs to be there earlier. So I did channel that pain. Thankfully, this is where the story of hope comes in now. And I said, okay, all the support that my brother needed, it didn't exist. Sean needed friends, he needed confidence, he needed to find what his abilities were, a bit of positivity in his life, a reason for getting out of bed every day. But upon searching for that, it just didn't exist at all. Like, the only thing that people recommended were going to the gym. My brother liked going to the gym, but that wasn't going to help him with the situation. It wasn't going to help him to make friends because people are so focused on themselves in the gym. But that was the only solution, even that's what the medical people were telling me as well. Oh, we can get him a gym membership. It's like, no, that's not what you need. You really need friends. So when Sean died, I looked at all the things that I was searching for my brother, and I went for the meeting 6 weeks after Sean died and said, I've got this idea. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if I'm the right person to do it, but something needs to happen. Otherwise, more men are going to die. And thankfully, on the back of that, I created what's now Sean's Place. And it's the most special place. And I just want to tell you a little bit more about that now. So I just love this picture as well. That's why I threw it in there. But at Sean's Place, we provide practical, proactive support. It's early intervention support. You don't need a diagnosis. Some people never get a diagnosis. Some people just fall on tough times. They may have a relationship breakdown. They may have stress in the workplace. We have other people who do come to us with a diagnosis who are just like Sean, who are suffering from anxiety and depression and psychosis. And while they're having all the medical interventions, they've also got us who can provide some light relief and a little bit of support to pick them up when they need it most, so that they don't reach the point of suicide like my brother did. I believe that if Sean's Place was open 2-3 years ago, he'd still be here now. So we do that by providing counselling. We provide free and immediate access to cognitive behavioural therapy or CBT therapy. We provide drop-in sessions where they can just come and have a cup of tea, game of pool, and just make friends really and get to know people that, you know, may not be in the same shoes as them, but they can absolutely understand, you know, what each other are going through. We provide mental health workshops to help them to understand their journey and how they can move forward with their lives. Guitar lessons, cookery classes, mindfulness, art therapy, and courses and qualifications. So a lot of it is support without it being called support. It's just coming to us and being with your mates and just working on your self-esteem, working on your confidence and getting through it together. Our sort of logo is in this together. I think like the NHS and COVID and stuff sort of robbed that from us, which we weren't too happy about. But it's about a whole team effort. We are run by 40 volunteers who all work in different jobs and different walks of lives, and they donate the time to come and run the programmes for us. And they too have also got their own lived experience with either supporting somebody with mental health or their own journey with overcoming their own mental health challenges. And we really are a family. And, you know, we've got people in the audience today who come to Sean's Place to provide support and access our support. And they've paid £65 to be here, so it just shows what a family we are, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you for coming. So just want to tell you a little bit more how we did it, because my hope today is that you will look at what support is in your community and say, where is the support for men? Because that's exactly what we did in our community. You know, I had an endless list of support where I could go if I was struggling with my mental health, but for men there was nothing. And if there was, it was like 2 hours on a Thursday afternoon. But what do you do if you work? Do you lose 2 hours pay every week so you can go and access support? So we started off in a dance studio. We had this lovely dance school who said, we will give you our space to pilot what you are doing. And we didn't know if it would work. Initially, we only had like 2, maybe 3 people come in, if that. So we had doubt ourselves if this was something men really wanted, or if this was something I hoped that my brother wanted. We were in dance school, and our therapist Joe's here today. He was still living in therapy in the cleaning cupboard because that's the only space that we had. But the need was there, and we promised that we would provide that support. We graduated from there to a community hall, which was amazing. And that's when Sean's Place really took off, because we had a kitchen where we could run our cookery lessons. On the other side of the room, you'd have guitar lessons. So there was such a brilliant atmosphere. There was a pool table. It was open plan. So everyone could really get to know each other and build those friendships and relationships. But then the community centre obviously needed their space back because they had their own projects to run. And we also outgrew the space. At this point in January 2021, we were seeing 75 men a week. So we outgrew the space and we really needed our own home. So we signed a lease on our first premises in February this year, and we've outgrown there as well. We now see around 200 men a week across a variety of services and support. I quit my day job in July this year and made Sean's Place full time as well. So it's been a massive sort of journey for us. The new premises is incredible. We've got 3 therapy rooms, a sport hall, 2 kitchens, we've got gardens. It's just endless, the amount of support we're going to be able to provide. And There's nothing like that available anywhere else that we know of that is solely dedicated to men. It's a nice space as well. It feels nice when you walk in there, and that's most important, what I wanted. You go to some places for men and it's like a bit of a pub atmosphere. It's a bit dark and dingy, and not all men want that. Some people feel comfortable in spaces like that, but some men really want somewhere where they can feel good about themselves and it feels nice when you walk in the building. We hope that's what we're going to provide now. So some of the reasons why the men will come to Sean's Place are to build friendships. A lot of men struggle to accept that they are lonely. Well, they accept that they're lonely, but they struggle to verbalise that. But when they come through to Sean's Place and they've got a cup of tea and we're having a natter, a lot of them do confide in us and say, I'm lonely, I don't have any friends. Or if I do have friends, I can't confide in them because lads have a bit of banter between them. So when is that space for you to be able to talk about mental health together or how you're truly feeling? So sometimes people want somebody away from that friendship group that they can open up to and someone who can truly understand the pain that they're enduring. We're non-judgmental as well. You know, most spaces like Sean's Place are non-judgmental. We have to be, because no matter what people's pasts are or the journeys that they've been on, it doesn't matter, because in that room we're all equal and we're all there for exactly the same purpose, which is to improve our lives. And a listening ear is probably the most important thing up there. With my brother, I'm a fixer, and I always wanted to try and fix my brother, because if he told me he was feeling suicidal, which he did, I'd be like, okay, how can I fix him? What do we do? Where do we go? Often people don't need that. People just need a listening ear, like what Johnny received from the man on the bridge. It's just somebody to open the heart and open the ears and just give that space to somebody to truly talk. And then positivity and understanding. See, he's giving me cute. I'm nearly finished now. And positivity is the most important thing out of Sean's Place. Mental health can be, you know, people think about mental health centres being all, you know, doom and gloom and sad, and they're really not. At Sean's Place, we have such a laugh. We build so many friendships and relationships there. It's such a positive place. And I think that's why it works. We're not clinical, you know, we don't try and be clinical. We are just who we are. And there's so much room in other communities for places like this to exist.
I'm a member of Sean's Place. I'm not saying I'm thankfully a member, because if it wasn't for them or similar organisations like them, then my suicide attempts, which I've passed off, I've attempted suicide 4 times in my life, I would have probably made another attempt in the past couple of months because of how low my mental health was getting. But because of Sean's Place, it has totally turned my life around. It's made me feel a lot more positive about myself. It's given me new friends, new hobbies, new skills. It's brought a smile back to my life that I needed. And without Sean's Place, that wouldn't be possible.
In 6 weeks, my world has turned around from 30 years of darkness to 6 weeks of... I'm so happy. Even my family are saying I'm glowing. People are looking at me and saying, my God, you look well. Where they've always said, do you ill? Do you look ill? And it's all down to Sean's Place. I've never known a place like it. They've never asked me about my past. It's all positive. Let's go forward. I'm learning the guitar. I'm going keep fit on the Friday with them. My life's on the up. And it's all down to Debbie and the team at Sean's Place.
And that's it. But thank you. As I say, you know, this was built out of, I think I had £50 in my pocket when I started building Sean's Place. I didn't have the experience. It just took time and effort. It's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time, but it's so worth it. So if you are thinking about creating your own version of Sean's Place in your community, please do, because these are the results. They speak for themselves. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Steve.
As amazing as I thought it would be. Right, folks, another moment I've been really looking forward to today. The Growth House, one of those, I think, initial LinkedIn connections when I chatted with Sam Dunstan, told me about the work that he and Chris and the team are doing. I think something totally different for us now. I don't even know how to introduce you guys properly here, but let's just say they look like they're ready at the back in their sweatshirts and hoodies, and anything could happen in the next 25 minutes. So please welcome the guys from the Growth House.
Typical actors, you have to make an entrance, don't you? Can't you say hello? Hi, everyone. My name's Sam. I am one of the co-founders of the Growth House. Today, performing for you, we have Mr. Levi Payne, all the way from sunny Doncaster. We have the Tyneside Terror, Mr. Peter Pearson. And the man who hails from the place where rain was invented, all the way from Manchester, Mr. Christopher Finnegan. So very quickly, just to say thank you to all the speakers that have come so far, been up so far. Some really, really inspiring stuff. And we hope that you guys enjoy what we present to you today. We are a live performance and film production company. We make work. We make what we call socially conscious work. So we immerse ourselves in our communities and we make work that resonates with them, for them, collaborating, communicating, and building something better. We describe our shows as part performance, part protest, and part party, celebrating the hopeful stuff and pushing for some radical change where possible. What you're going to see today is some excerpts from a show called Big Strong Man that was supposed to debut for International Men's Day last year. And then I don't know if you guys heard there was like a flu or something, and most of the world, they hate that joke. That's the reason I've included it. It's part of our wider project, Manor Project, which we've been doing since 2018, working with communities in the north of England, mainly inspired by the high male suicide rate, and wanting to prevent that, wanting to work with the men from our communities, the men that we grew up with, that wouldn't engage in typical theatre, that wouldn't engage in the kind of art that we make usually. So we're like, okay, let's bring it to them. Let's do something bigger, better, bolder. With that said, I'm going to need your help for some of this. Yes, everyone's favorite bit. Can everyone just raise their right hand for me? And raise your left hand for me. And clap on 3. 1, 2, 3. Lovely. Before each performance element, we are going to say, we're going to raise our arms like this, and we're going to say, big, strong, man. And we need you guys to clap with us. Can you do that? Okay, let's have another practice round, shall we? And big, strong, man. Beautiful, beautiful. As you've noticed from some of my enthusiastic colleagues here, there are points when we might talk to you. Don't worry, you don't have to talk to us. You don't have to... yeah, the fear. You don't have to talk to us. Peter's horrible to talk to. He's really boring. So you don't need to talk to Peter. If you don't want to talk to us, if you do not want to engage, if you're not in the headspace for it, that's okay. You'll simply do this. Hi, I'm going to talk to you. Ah! Minus the scream. If you don't want to talk to us, that's okay. Just simply do an X and we'll move on to the next person. Much like what Steve mentioned earlier about self-care, if you are not in a position or a place to engage with us, that's absolutely fine with us. Absolutely fine. Lastly, I've got a question for you guys. I want you guys to think about this for this first part, for this first material we're going to show you. What, to you, are the qualities that define a man? What, to you, are the qualities that define a man? Have a think about that during this first section. Hope you enjoy.
I'm just not.
He's all oh, God. Get out! No, I'm ready. Okay. Big, strong man. Khakis and geezers, argy-bargy. Khakis and geezers, argy-bargy. Have a go, ayo, ayo. Khakis and Hathaway, shit like a khaki, another, and another. It's your brother, just stroke as a cat. Khakis and geezers, argy-bargy. Khakis and geezers, argy-bargy. Have a go, ayo, ayo. Khakis and Hathaway, shit like a khaki, another, and another. It's your brother, just stroke as a cat. Much like our new Big Strong Man, we're going to do a little song for you guys now. But again, we're going to need your help to sing along. So, thankfully, we brought placards. They're not great.
They're made out of paint that was quite, maybe possibly toxic, anti-slip, and definitely waterproof. It was not very appropriate because the metal fences. Paint for metal fences.
Yeah. Rehearsal area wasn't happy. No, stank the whole place out. It was also a pub. Yeah. Great.
We live what we do.
Absolutely, yeah. Some of you might know the song. You do, by all means, sing along. The bits we need you to do are just on these placards to make it really, really nice and simple. The chorus, don't worry, we'll lift them up. The chorus goes. He was me brother, Sylvester. What's he got? So I say that, and you say this. You say the like that. Well, we did the apostrophe and everything. And the lady was going, what's going on? About statistics. So the chorus goes. He was me brother, Sylvester. What's he got? Hey! All right, let's see if we can give it up. A row of 40 medals on his chest. Big chest! Very nice, very nice. Right, let's see if they can do the next bit. Okay. Killed 50 bad men in the West. He knows no rest. Bigger man, hellfire, don't push, just shove. Plenty of room for you and me. That's our bit, don't you worry about that. Yeah. He's got an arm, like a leg, lady's leg.
That one's confusing.
Run that again. He's got an arm, a leg, he's got a leg. He's got an arm, like a leg, a lady's leg. And a punch that can sink a battleship. Big shit. Takes all the army and the navy to put the wind up. Sylvester. Don't worry, we'll go for it. We'll get it. All right,
You'll get this in no time.
so have you heard about the big strong man? Strong man. He lives in a caravan. Have you heard about the big Johnson fight? Johnson fights? Ooh, what a hell of a fight. He could take on all the heavyweights you got. We got a man that could take the whole lot. He used to ring the bell free. Now he's gonna fight Jack Dempsey. He was big brother Sylvester. What was that for? Hey, I'm not that far away. I'm not doing this. It's not 60,000 people. You've had your coffee. I thought you'd all be buzzed like, yeah. Placards, yeah. Ooh, reading some words. I give it to him. Go on. He was big brother Sylvester. I wrote 40 medals on his chest. Yes. Killed 50 men in the West. He knows no rest. Big of a man, hell's fire. Don't push, just shove. Plenty of room for you and me. He's got it on. Like a leg. And a punch that can sink a battleship. Big shit. Takes all the army and the navy to put the wind up. Sylvester.
So we thought we'd take a trip to Italy.
Italy.
And thought he would go by sea.
By sea.
He jumped in the harbour in New York. And he swam like a madman cork. He saw the Lusitania in distress.
What did he do?
He put the Lusitania on his chest.
Big chest.
Drank all the water in the sea.
And he walked all the way to Italy. He was big brother Sylvester. I wrote 40 medals on his chest. Big chest. Killed 50 men in the West. He knows no rest. Big of a man, hell's fire. No push, just shove. Plenty of room for you and me. He's got an arm, like a leg, and a punch that can sink a battleship. Big shit. Takes all the army and the navy to put the wind up. Sylvester. Well, he thought to take a trip to Japan. And he turned out the whole brass band.
Brass band.
Sure, he paid every instrument he asked. And the man, he sure paid the whole lot. The bells will ring. Hell's and the whole church choir will sing. Hell's fire. They all turned out to say farewell to my brother Sylvester. He was big brother Sylvester. What's he got? Way over 40 medals on his chest. Big chest. Killed 50 bad men in the West. He knows no rest. Big of a man, hell's fire. No push, just show. Plenty of room for you and me. Got it on, like a leg, and a bullet that can sink a battleship. Big shit. Takes all the army and the navy to put the wind up. Sylvester. Thank you.
I'm going to have a go at using this now. Great. So next up, we have a competitive element to the show. Competition being a big part of masculine tropes, right? Masculine stereotypes. Usually this would have been a wrestling match by people who don't know how to wrestle. But because of this setup, we thought it might be better to do something else. So we're going to do a tug of war for you, and I'm going to leave this podium and go down to the rope. So, right, we're going to get you involved, get you voting on who you think is going to win. We've got 2 competitors, and it's a bit of a tournament, so we're going to go through a few rounds to see who will win.
This is a real tournament, by the way.
Yeah, there's no like choreographed. I'm going to win one, then he'll win one. No, we genuinely have to go.
That will be displayed within the performance.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're going to feed into the final show.
Yes.
And we're going to involve, so we need some names for our contenders, we need names for our competitors. So I'm just going to ask you, sir, can I have your favorite color? Green. Green, great, green.
Always very green as well.
Then I get city. New York. So we've got, and favorite animal. Harrogate. Harrogate, that's you.
I came up to him and said, how to stand up? And look at his hair. Look at mine. Making me look like a fool. He called me a pelican, he did.
And over here, we need a name for this competitor. So let's here you go. Yeah, no pressure on this. Right. An emotion. Sad.
Yeah, that's about right.
And let's have a vegetable. Carrot. A sad carrot. Over here.
That was awesome.
I don't know if you can see this, but to determine the window, we've got this bit of tape here, but we need some markers, so we're going to need some help as well. So, would you mind just sticking your arm out here? Perfect. Maybe like that way. Great, amazing. And that's going to be our marker. So, if this over here, the green pelican from New York is bud, and you might put your arm out as well. Amazing! So, if we go this way, then we have the sad carrot is one sad carrot. So, hands up, do you think the green pelican from New York is going to win? Show of hands. Do you think he's going to win? Hands up for sad carrot.
Steve, what Yes!
Put your own side, please, gentlemen.
That was essential. I want to win properly. Cool.
Right, ready? And we're going to do a big, strong man to start the match. Big, strong man.
Come on, push.
Right.
Very good! Commiserations there, Sam. We can't blame it on the carpet. Okay, human beings, thank you very much for backing me. Clearly, you think I'm more than that. What's your favourite sport? Ice hockey. Okay, ice hockey. And your favourite colour?
It was green, but said further.
Purple ice, please! There, How are you?
We've already picked them. No.
All right.
Yeah, someone
What are these? Tell me, what's your favourite? Just give me your favourite colour. Blue. Very good. We've got the blue. And your favourite animal, please, man. The blue dog! Okay, hands up if you believe that this wonderful human being here is going to win. Hands up. Opinions. Okay. Oh, I brought that over here.
Yay! All right.
Right, okay. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Very good, please. Okay, so you got the big, strong man. Oh, wait. One no. Keep them out straight. Oh, Levi's going for his nose. Very good. Losers against losers.
I don't understand how
and gentlemen, who bet? No, losers be losers, and I've already forgotten the names. What do we have? Blue dog. I've just beat you, I should know that. The blue dog, ladies and gentlemen. And we have, and I just, this one have a name yet, I can't remember. The sad carrot, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for the sad carrot. Someone doesn't very good. Yeah, there we go. Somebody knows the rule. Right, show of hands. We think the sad carrot is going to take victory, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God! Wow, that's so good for myself. And show of hands for his opponent. Is his opponent going to win? That's right. I said opponent. Sorry, brother. Sorry. Carry on. Blue dog, man. Let me try then. Are we ready? And big, strong, and very nice. Oh, come on. Oh, wait. Oh, wow. No, it means Sammy's fourth. Okay, so I won both rounds. So, me versus Levi. Get outside, buddy. So what we've got, the green Pelican of New York. Green Pelican of New York versus, what have you got? Purple Ice! Purple Ice! Right, now hands up, Green Pelican of New York. Do we think this fellow over here is going to win? Oh, okay. And what do we think for Purple Ice? Purple Ice! Come on, hey! That's it. That's it. Right. You gave me a dirty look. Thank you so much for doing this. We didn't expect to do this today. We want to entertain you. Every time, but it's a very professional job. Top the ropes, please. Boys, tighten the ropes. That's it. This is your stances. And we'll just start with a big, strong bang. Up we go. Oh, I've got so much injury. I'm not going to do It's not as equally as strong as each other. This is why we should have go away. Oh! No! Oh, he goes to the final, and it's me and you now, Pete. Is it? Right. Yeah. Is it? Me and you. You okay, Sam? I'm alright. How are you? Yeah. Feeling okay? Mental health's intact? Oh. Everybody and all, please. Oh. So, this round is serious. You can tell that because I'm doing my moves. Hey, John! What? Oh. Well, how do you just play with you? I'll give you that. No, I don't want that. All right. Not bad for him, guys. Not bad for him. Right, let's go. Okay. Big strong man, please. Big strong man. Oh. We easily dominate Peter. Peter's now in third place. We have fourth place, third place is now between Levi and myself. So the final round, the rematch of the century. You're confused. Do you know how many times we've rehearsed this? Who goes next? Very good. Right, we have a lot. Thank you so much, ladies. Right. There we go. All right. Go. So, hands up. Do we think Green Pelican from New York is going to win? Show of hands, show of confidence. Oh, you changed that. Oh! I know. Purple Ice. Purple Ice. I was going to say she is nice, but not. We're ready for the final match. Big, strong, bang! Off we go. I'm going to jump around. Oh, my grandmother. 12 foot tall. A good Dublin lady. Thank you very much. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this pelican is a wise pelican. This pelican
is a strong pelican. This pelican has flown from New York, pledged the victory here in Harrogate. This pelican is your big, strong man!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome now to a world in which your manhood, a person's manhood, whether they are a man or not, is not given to them by nature. It is not just grown into. It is something that has to be earned through trial, through tribulation, and has to be bestowed upon them through a series of questions and answers. And basically, a jury. Tonight, well, rather today, you're going to be that jury for us. You will be deciding whether Mr. Chris Finnegan here deserves to be a man or not, or to remain forever a boy. You will be questioned by our interrogators here, and based on his answers, we will put it to you whether he should be a man or a boy. Big, strong man. Begin.
James Francis Finnegan. Where you from? From Manchester. Right. Doing much there? What? You like it there? Yeah, I like it. You like it? Why is he hesitating? I like Manchester because it's a great place of music. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of culture, and I enjoy being a part of culture, and people are...
Culture. Now, what do you mean by culture? What's culture? Is this culture?
Multicultural people coming into... just have to like the city, mate. We don't need to like stories. All right, chill out. All right, sorry.
Don't you drink on a night out?
A dark route.
What's wrong with beer?
I don't know. I just prefer sugar.
Oh, you like fruity, yeah?
No, I really like really strong Belgian beer. Belgian beer, you drink dark fruits. Yeah. Right.
Stop.
Yeah, a bit inconsistent there. I'm not feeling that.
Right, what are you working on there?
Christopher Finnegan, do you want to be a man?
Yes, I want to be a man.
Are you taking this seriously?
I'm taking this very, very serious.
Very good. Begin round two.
Up! Run, back, now. Breaker! Chair!
Tired? No, not tired. I'm not tired.
You're lying to me. No, you're lying to me.
I'm not lying to you.
I can see
I can
see you breathing. Why are you lying to me?
A man doesn't lie. I do not lie.
A man doesn't lie. So why are you lying to me right
I'm
now?
not lying to you right now. I promise you. I'm telling you.
What are the lies that you told us?
What are the lies that you told us? I'm not telling lies. All right, relax. Okay. School life. Yeah, let's go back to that. Tell us about it. Come on. My mum and dad got divorced when I was 8 years old. Right, skip that shit. I'm talking about school, man. Come on. I'm really hard at school. I'm going to ask you about dude, I didn't know what to do when I was at school. Whoa!
Stop!
I'm being aggressive because you're chatting shit to me.
Stop! Thank you, gentlemen. Levi, I want you to really get into what he cares about now. Third final round, begin.
What are you into then? What do you mean, what am I into? Mention your family, come on, let's go. Now I'll elaborate right. When I was a child, me and my brother was the only thing that we had to look after each other. My mother went through come on, just get to it. Come on, my mother went through alcoholism. We found it very difficult. We went through so you raised yourself. Yeah, me and my brother raised us. What's the problem with that? What is the problem with that?
You're snapping again.
Why are you shy? I am snapping at you. Why do you think I'm snapping at you?
Calm the fuck down.
Right, remember. I'm here to prove that I'm a man and all you're doing is debating. Yeah, remember why you're here. Finger out my face.
Oh,
we're getting somewhere now. What? So you can't take a little poke like you can be like.
Look at me. Here's what I think about you. I think I don't believe a word out of your mouth. I think we proved you're a liar.
Why is he constantly talking to me like I'm a liar? I haven't lied to think. Why are you testing me for? Why are you testing? Am I interrupting you? Of course I'm interrupting you.
Finish! Right, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the questions, you've seen the answers. Do you believe that this gentleman before you deserves to be a man? Hands up for yes. Wow. Hands up for no. Why are you upset? We want him to be a man.
He's angry, he's impulsive, he doesn't listen.
Who knows a man who isn't like that? Right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now for our final decisions.
Big, strong man. Thanks very much, everyone. That was the first part of our presentation. Oh, sorry, I kicked your tape. That was the first part of our presentation. Pete?
Yes, so just to leave you with another question to ponder in the lunch break and for the rest of the day. So the questions that we are looking at through the actual lens, through look at different types of methods. The second question we want you to go away with is, what does it mean to avoid becoming a man? We were very explicit in this one. What does it mean to avoid becoming a man? Thank you very much. We are the Growth House, and I was going to do Don't Grow Up, Grow Out, which is our catchphrase. Don't grow up, grow out!
Oh, she was tall. Wow. I booked these people. Just incredible. Gosh, definitely not your regular conference. Fantastic start. Obviously more to come from the Growth House this afternoon. But yeah, tremendous stuff. Some months ago, my wife and I were sitting in bed watching breakfast television, and there was a bulletin with Mike Bushell. Most of you know Mike Bushell, the BBC reporter, sports reporter, being frightened to death by our next speaker as James took him for a ride on his gyrocopter. Mike looked absolutely terrified, but then again, he looks terrified of everything, doesn't he, Mike Bushell, ordinarily? And the media said to Laurence, I need to get James to come and speak at our conference. James, hugely inspiring individual. He's going to share his story with you now. Had his own struggles, but has gone out in a big way to inspire people, particularly young people in the world. And I'm going to let James share his story now. So without any further ado, I don't know whether I use your full title of Captain James Ketchell, but let's do that anyway, James. Please welcome James Ketchell.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Look, this is going to be just a bit of fun. I'm going to share some stories of fun and adventure over the next sort of 20 minutes. Got a little surprise at the end that Steve's not sure about, so doesn't know about actually. So we'll see how well that goes down or goes up. Yeah, Steve contacted me about a year ago when I took Mike flying, and I thought, yeah, I'd love to come along and share some stories of fun. In order to share these stories, I actually had to turn the clocks back. 15 years ago, I used to race bikes. That's a Kawasaki ZX6 Ninja. It's actually quite a fast bike. It would max out at about 175 miles an hour. But inevitably, you would only be at that speed for a few seconds or a split second because there's a corner to get around. And I was quite competitive. I didn't like to lose, but I can tell you one thing. It doesn't matter who you are. No one wins all the time. Trust me. And when you're on two wheels and you want to win, one of two things is going to happen. You are either going to win or you're going to crash trying. Unfortunately, I used to crash quite a bit. But you wear this leather suit here. So the idea is when you slide along the tarmac, it stops you from losing all your skin. It's very, very useful. One particular time, I was in second place. I was chasing someone. I came out the corner. I remember it like it was yesterday. The bike was leant over, very similar to that. I was in third gear. The engine was maxed out. It was screaming at about 16,000 RPM. I shifted up into fourth gear. I was traveling at about 120 miles an hour. And I put a bit too much power down. And the rear wheel span up. So the back of the bike lost traction. So it came round on me and threw me over the top of the handlebars at just over 100 miles an hour. And, you know, it can be problematic when the human body hits concrete at 100 miles an hour. But it's interesting because I remember flying through the air as if time had slowed down. Obviously it hadn't. My senses were massively heightened. And I had this one thought going through my head. And I thought to myself, oh dear, this is going to hurt. Next thing I know, bang, I hit the ground hard and was knocked out. And I remember waking up at the side of the track. Initially, I was very winded. I was struggling to breathe. And a doctor came running over to me and he looked into my eyes. My visor had been ripped off the helmet when my head had hit the floor. And he said, are you okay, son? And I said, my leg hurts. I had this really intense pain running down through my right leg. I'll never forget this. He stood there and he went from looking into my eyes to looking down. And he went, ooh. Now, trust me, guys, when a doctor does that, it's never a good sign. So, of course, he says, well, whatever you do, son, don't look down. So, of course, I looked down immediately. And instead of my right foot pointing forwards, I'd snapped my ankle, so my foot was pointing backwards. It's funny because it hurt that little bit more looking at it. But I was quite pleased. I felt like I had a sense of humor in the face of adversity because that morning I'd put a white sock on and the doctor, very gently, he slid the boot off. And I had something called an open fracture. So the skin had split and the bone was sticking out. But it happened to be bleeding very heavily. And I looked at it and the first thing that came into my mind, I said to the guy, do you have a camera or a phone? Wouldn't that make a great picture? He said, stop being such a silly boy. I said, I'm sorry. Then the next thing I know, he started injecting morphine into me. It was like incredible. The pain disappeared. And then I woke up in hospital. I hadn't just snapped my ankle. I'd broken both my legs, broken my arm, and I'd fractured my lower back. So this was a little bit of a problem. I woke up on a special board. For 2 months, I just had to lie there. I could not do a thing. And when I mean I could not do a thing, I actually had to have a nurse wash me. It wasn't all bad in some respects. I just had to figure out how I was going to try and turn something negative into something positive. And ever since I've been a young boy, I think I used to read and watch too much Tintin. But I've had this crazy dream to try and row a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. But you know what? I never had the guts to do it. I was always too worried. I didn't think I could do it. I was worried about other people's opinions. And for whatever reason, I just kept putting it off and off and off. And I was lying in there in that hospital bed and the doctor, he was just doing his job. But he said, listen, you've really smashed yourself up. I don't know if you're going to be able to walk again. And it was funny. It was almost like a light switch moment because at that very point, I thought, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to get better and I am going to row a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. I felt like I needed something to aim for. It ended up taking about 2 years to make a recovery. So it wasn't a 5-minute thing, but I did eventually get better. And I managed to do it. Doesn't really look like me, does it? My hair goes blonde and my beard goes bright ginger. But we all know that ginger's cool. There's bound to be some ginger people in here somewhere. That's actually Antigua in the background. And I set out from a little island called La Gomera, which is in the Canary Islands, just off the coast of North Africa. It's 3,000 miles, so it is quite a long way to row. And usually you would do this as a 2-man, a 4-man, sometimes even a 10-man. And I really wanted to do it with someone else, but for some reason, no one would do it with me. So I had no choice but to do it on my own. I mean, I could talk to you for all day about being out there. It was absolutely incredible. The most common question is like, what did you see? What did you think about there? How long did it take? Usually it takes about 70 days to row across on your own. But I had a lot of areas of bad weather. So instead of getting blown across, I was getting blown back. And it ended up taking 110 days, 4 hours and 4 minutes. And not that I was counting, right? But it was incredible. Every day when the sun came up, believe it or not, it looked different. The water just glistened and sparkled in a different way. It was magical. The wildlife, it was like something you'll never forget. Huge, big fin whales. They're the size of a bus. They would literally come and swim right up to the boat. They were massive. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the film Life of Pi, but flying fish, trust me, they really do fly. They have little wings on them. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd been rowing all through the day. I was pretty tired. And it was a really dark night. The moon wasn't out. It was cloudy. So it was pitch black. And when you're out in the middle of the Atlantic, when it's dark, it's a darkness that you've not experienced before. But the stars can be amazing sometimes. And my head torch was illuminating the area in front of me. All of a sudden, this white object came flying out the water. Bang! Hit me right in the face. Now, I was so tired. I thought I'd just been hit by a golf ball. And I thought, hang about, no one's playing golf out here. Of course, there were not. It was a little fish. It hit me in the face. And it was flapping up and down on the deck. And I thought, what do I do with this thing? Do I try and eat it? No, God, no. It's small and bony. So I threw it back in so it could hit someone else in the face another day. But all sorts of crazy things happened. I used to get out of the boat to clean the bottom of the hull, so the boat would pierce through the water that little bit more efficiently. And when you get out of the water into the Atlantic, especially out towards the Caribbean, it's like a warm bath. It's beautiful. You look down, the water is crystal clear, and it sort of goes from this beautiful blue to this black. And it's 3 miles to the bottom. So you're never that far from land. It's just the wrong way. Incredible ecosystem of fish swimming around, oceanic white-tip sharks. They were fascinating. I wanted to get them to come closer, actually, so I could film them. So I would throw bits of food in to get them to come closer. But for some reason, they'd never come that close. I had this idea that I could sort of get in with them, but I decided not to try it. But one day I was cleaning the bottom of the hull, and this little fish, about this big, wasn't particularly, there were hundreds of them everywhere. The wildlife is just amazing. I was cleaning the bottom, and this little fish swam right up to me and very unexpectedly just bit me right on the nipple. I couldn't believe it. It didn't hurt. It was the shock. It was like I've just been bitten on the nipple by a fish in the Atlantic. It was crazy. But eventually I managed to make it into Antigua, into English Harbour. My mum and dad were due to fly out to meet me, but this is just my luck. Their flight was cancelled on the way too. So I didn't know any of these people. Honestly, but when the word got out that this lunatic from Britain was coming in and his mum and dad weren't there, I was quite lucky. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I spent the whole time, I suppose, yeah, pretty much the whole time wishing it away, thinking, I've got to get there, I've got to get there. It's going to be great when I get there. Do you know what? When I was one day away, I'll tell you a real quick story. The first sight of land, it was at night, and I could see this red flashing beacon on the horizon, and I knew it was Antigua because I could see it on my chart plotter. It's like a sat nav for the ocean. And it was about, you know, people said to me, oh, you'll see Antigua from 60 miles out. Now, maybe if you're stood on top of a whacking great cruise ship, you might, but not when you're on the, I think it was only about 20 miles out. And I could see this flashing light on the horizon. And I had this really old little FM radio with me. So I tuned it in and I could start to hear this like reggae Caribbean music. And I thought, wow, I've really done it. And something happened. All of a sudden, I didn't want to finish. I spent the whole time rushing, trying to get there. And when I knew that I was going to do it, I thought, oh, actually, I'd like to keep going. I don't really want to stop. And in a really weird way, I kind of felt a bit sad. I mean, it was pretty awesome when I rode in. But the Atlantic, well, I learned many things. But, you know, I sort of thought it's really important to enjoy the process of something. So many people go wrong because they just want to get there and without enjoying the process. And yeah, the Atlantic taught me many things. You know, I do a lot of work with kids and I say to them, listen, if you do something you have not done before, okay, it's got to be an action to get a reaction. Doors of opportunity will come your way. They will. And during my preparation for this, I met someone who was also rowing the Atlantic. He didn't want to do it with me for some reason, but he was a very accomplished high altitude climber. The guy had stood on top of Everest 5 times. Great guy. And he said to me, look, after the row, I think together we can climb Everest. And I said, look, to be honest, I'm not really sure I can do that. But I thought, well, hang about. I didn't think I could do that. And I'll tell you something really interesting about this row. Probably one of the most interesting things I've figured out. I spent all this time wishing I could do it and wanting to do it. When I got out there, I realized something. It was nowhere near as hard as I thought it was going to be. It really wasn't. Do you know, the easiest thing I've managed to do is just sit on that seat for 110 days and pull the oars. It honestly wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Do you know the hardest thing I've ever had to get my head around is actually just believing I could do it. And when I got out there, I thought, Christ, I could have done this years ago. It really wasn't that bad. And so I kind of remembered that. And I thought, you know what? I've got no idea if I can climb to the top of the world's highest mountain. There's quite a few challenges to overcome. I needed to get home. Thankfully, I managed to sell that boat to some other lunatic, paid off the loan. And then I had to go back to square one. I had no money, couldn't turn to my parents to ask for any. So I had to figure out how I was going to make it happen. Long story short, I had literally like a week left. I spent 6 months sending letters out, basically begging letters to companies to try and get sponsored. In the end, I ended up getting sponsored by Nando's. Can you believe it or not? I make great chicken burgers, right? But I didn't see the connection. And I wasn't going to bother sending the email to them when I was given the contact details. But But I thought, if I do nothing, what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing. So I pinged it out. No joke. He rang me. Guy rang me. His name was Andrew. He rang me like 30 minutes later and said, James, I'm reading your email. It's bloody brilliant. But tell me one thing. Do you actually eat Nando's? So I paused and was like, yes. Every day I eat Nando's. And it cost me a fortune, but I can only eat lemon and herb. I can't eat anything hot and spicy because effectively I'm a big wimp. And the guy was like, really? So you've rode the Atlantic and you're going out to Everest and you can't eat our hot chicken? I said, yeah, that's true. And he said, wow, that's a brilliant story. We might be able to do something with you. 1 week left, I got the sponsorship to get out there. And, I was starting to learn something at this point because I'm embarrassed to say, I'd pretty much given up. I thought I'd tried everything. But you know what? If you've tried everything, you'd have what it is that you want. And the time that you can't be bothered to do something, but you make the effort to do it, only then will good things start happening for you. I promise you that. I managed to do it. I didn't stand on top of the world because I'm some badass guy. The truth is I got very, very lucky. A lot of things came together for me, and it was actually extremely difficult. That is actually my favorite picture. I look like Darth Vader out of Star Wars, don't I? But just to prove it is actually me, the ginger beard comes back, and I look pretty tired and quite old, actually. I was only 29. I look like I'm 59 there. And nothing wrong with 59, though. On the way back down, I didn't realize I had quite a nasty lung infection. I didn't know it at the time. And I really started to struggle. Usually it takes about 2 days to get from the top back down to the bottom. But it ended up taking 4 days. It ended up taking twice as long. And I've never, ever been to a place where I thought I was just going to collapse. I had nothing more to give. I thought I was quite a fit, strong guy, having rode across the Atlantic. But those 4 days descending Everest, I eventually found out I had pneumonia, was extremely difficult. And if it wasn't for my Sherpas, Dorji, and another guy called Lakbar, they're the local people that live and work out there. And if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be here today. And I remember Dorji was going mental at me, saying, look, at this slow rate that you're moving, you're not going to get down. You're going to run out of oxygen, you're going to get cold, and you're going to die. You don't want that, do you? And I thought, do you know what? I am moving slow, but I am at least moving. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter if you're moving slowly towards something, as long as you keep moving. And when I got back from Everest, I was very lucky. I really was. I realized that actually, do you know what? The worst thing I could ever done is just stop and kind of like feel sorry for myself. And actually, do you know what? You don't have to be descending Mount Everest. If you're going through a problem or something's just not working out, or you're going through a challenging time, the worst thing you can do is just stop. If you keep moving, it was that ability to keep moving that undoubtedly saved my life on Everest. I wouldn't be here now if I just stopped. And I'll tell you what, when you're faced with the prospect of you either have to keep going or you'll simply die, you'll be amazed at what you can do when you have no choice. You really will. I managed to get home and then I was taken straight to hospital. And that was when I found out that I had pneumonia. So I then spent 2 weeks in hospital. It was almost like a feeling of deja vu, to be honest. But when I was there, I kind of actually felt bizarrely quite happy. And I had this one thought going through my head. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be a great idea to cycle around the world? So I got myself better, guys. And a year later, I set out from Greenwich Park in London to cycle around the world. All my friends joined me for the first day. It was incredible. But quite quickly, they disappeared and I was on my own. I cycled through northern France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Czech Republic, Poland, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, into India, down through Asia. I wanted to speak to as many people as I could when I cycled around the world. I do a lot of work in schools. I spoke to 10,000 kids when I cycled around the world. I was more proud of that than the actual cycle, which, if I'm really honest, isn't that difficult. You just sit on the seat and you turn the pedals. That's it. You just have to do it for quite a long time. 6 months later, I arrived home. There was not much going on in the media, actually. And the media came out and said, hey, do you know there's 8 billion people on the planet? You've just become the only guy that's rode an ocean, been to the top of Everest and cycled the world. it's like an ultimate triathlon. Now, I felt a bit guilty because I'm not really a triathlete. I'm a terrible swimmer, not a very good runner. No one questioned me though. And it wasn't really that big a deal. It was just 3 things. But it was kind of quite special to me, because I remember when I was lying in that hospital bed and that doctor said, "Hey man, you're not looking too good. I don't know what the long-term prospects of you actually doing some of the things that you'd like to do really are." And I tell you what, when someone tells you you can't do something, if you want it enough and you really, really want it, I promise you, you'll get it. You will get it. Do you know, I've been very lucky. I've met a lot of very successful people. I suppose financially, they run big businesses, but I've also met athletes and also all sorts of different people. And do you know what? They're not as good as you might think. They just don't give up. That's the only difference. It really is. And I say to kids, listen, if you treat people in a way that you would like to be treated, you'll be absolutely amazed at the things that come your way. I promise you, you really will. I was getting ready to cycle around the world, and this lad got in contact with me. His name's Ash. And he said, listen, I want to row a boat across the Indian Ocean. And I said, okay, well, that's really cool. He said, no, I want to do it with you. I said, look, I'm a little bit busy right now. I've got to cycle around the world. Perhaps we'll pick this up when I get back.
To safety.
But unfortunately, halfway across, we ended up being rescued. The boat capsized. And that's me climbing up the side of the tanker. That was the only thing that could come and pick us up. And you know what? Luckily, Ash was okay. He sustained a quite serious head injury. But, you know, it's quite funny because everything had gone seemingly quite well for me. I'd climbed Everest, I'd cycled around the world and done a few other bits. And here I was being rescued in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And this was global news. And you know what? I felt like I'd let myself down. I felt like I'd let Ash down. I felt like I'd let the charity down. But it was quite interesting. Something off the back of this happened that I didn't really expect. There'll always be something good that happens off the back of something not going your way. I guess where this was global news, people were ringing me up. My phone was red hot. People saying, "Oh, we want you the guy that was on TV." I said, yeah, that's me. They said, "Great. Well, will you come and speak at RM for us? We really want to know what it's like to be rescued in the Indian Ocean." And all these different opportunities came off the back of it. I never saw it at the time. You will never, ever see it at the time. You'll only ever see it looking back. And I ended up working on a TV project in the Amazon jungle after that. Then another project came my way. I ended up taking a chap across the Atlantic Ocean, this very well-spoken guy, an older guy, 60, well, that's not old, yeah, middle-aged guy, 60-year-old chap, rang me up, really well-spoken, and wanted to cross the Atlantic Ocean. He didn't want to sail it. He wanted to do it in a slightly different way. And so we came up with this idea about doing it in like a hybrid boat. And so this is an ultimate pedalo. You can see, we didn't have a swan on the front of it or a slide, as you can see. But you could utilize a rowing position and a recumbulant cycling position. And basically, it became a job. You know, he rang me up and said, "I really want to do this." And he said, "Look, I've got a blank checkbook." And I said, "Thank you, God." No, I didn't really. But it was incredible. But I'd already been rescued once, right? And lightning surely doesn't strike twice, right? I can tell you it does. Unfortunately, we were halfway across, and poor old Anthony had what we thought was a suspected stroke. So this was a big problem. So I had to orchestrate a rescue for him. And luckily we got off the boat. It was a Chinese bulk carrier that rescued us. Initially, they dressed us up. They stripped us of all these possessions, put us in these orange jumpsuits. It was like a scene out of Guantanamo Bay. It was really quite frightening to begin with. But luckily, when they realized we were no real threat to them, they were pretty good and just you know, the boat was on its way back to Europe, and then we were airlifted off. But this is where things started to go a little bit wrong for me. I got home from this and I thought, how's this happened? The same things happened again. And quite quickly, I fell into a really bad pattern of negative behavior. I lost all interest in the things that I loved. And I started to overeat. I've always been a fit guy. I just lost interest in my training. And I ended up for nearly a year, I ended up in quite a bad place. But here's the thing. It's very difficult to say to someone when you've climbed Everest and you've done all this stuff, which is, supposedly quite an awesome thing to do. People think you're quite a strong guy. It's really difficult to say to someone, oh man, I'm not feeling too good. I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel good. And so I never really did anything about it. I suffered for quite a long time, best part of a year. And I realized that this cannot continue. I was ignoring people. I wasn't getting back to people on emails. I just wasn't doing anything. And I thought, what am I doing? This just isn't me. And I was very, very fortunate. One day, I thought, I've got to get back out. I'd put on so much weight, I couldn't hardly run a mile down the road. But it got me back out again. And I thought, do you know what helped me through that bike accident was having some focus and having something to aim for. If you don't have a purpose, if you have got nothing to aim for, you are going to struggle. That's just a fact. You've got to have something to work towards. And I thought, you know what? I've got to pick myself up. And actually that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. A lot of people, they say, James, what's the hardest thing you've ever managed to do? Must be climb Everest, right? Must be row the Atlantic. It's got nothing to do with that. The hardest thing I've ever had to get my head around is this, and pick myself up from a what I would call an extremely bad place and a very bad rut. And like I said, you can be a guy that's done all this stuff, but you'll still struggle just like everyone else does. You can be susceptible to it. And I thought the only way I'm going to get out of this is to help myself. And so I've always had an interest in flying when I was young, but never really had the money to do anything about it. Never really had the confidence. I didn't actually have a huge amount of confidence when I was young, but I had a bit more now. I was a bit older. I'd achieved a few things. So I thought, I need another challenge. I'm going to learn how to fly. So I learned how to fly. I wanted to fly helicopters, guys, but I couldn't afford to. Your average person doesn't fly helicopters. Trust me, they're pretty expensive. So I started to learn how to fly gyrocopters. And I just loved it. Something clicked. Where I used to race bikes, I guess my balance and coordination was pretty good. And I picked this up like it was no problem. I seemed to have a natural ability for it. And I thought, you know something? No one has ever flown one of these around the world. There hadn't. There've been a few people that tried. And I thought, crikey, wouldn't that be a great project? It was difficult, though. Again, I had to go through all the ups and downs of getting to the start line. But that's a story for another day, but I managed to do it. And I thought, I left with the mindset, I have no idea if I can do this or not. I really don't know. But what I do know is if I take it one day at a time and just go with the flow, if it's something that I can't control, just let it go. Don't worry about it. Just focus on the things that I can control. There might be a chance that I can do this. And you know what? It was quite difficult because a lot of people, before I left, they were saying, you'll find out who your people will try to give you advice. Well-meaning people will try to give you advice. And sometimes you have to be quite careful who you take advice from. People were coming to me. They didn't even know me. They said, hey, I heard you trying to fly around the world. Just to let you know, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. You're probably going to kill yourself. You need to rethink this. I didn't even know these people. And it was quite a common theme. People saying, I know you've done all these cool things, but you don't have enough experience to do this. And it kind of made me want it even more, if I'm honest. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to find some people that might be able to help me. I found a guy, his name was Peter. He'd flown around the world. And he said, well, what you're trying to do is pretty crazy. But if you do these things, you might just be able to do this. And luckily, I was able to get around the world. I'm going to share take you on a real quick journey. It'll take 30 seconds. I set off from Basingstoke. I live down south, so a fair way from here. Some friends and people came out for the first day, flew over France and Germany. That's Germany. I then had to go and see one of my sponsors. Without them, the project wouldn't have happened. And trust me, they have much bigger planes than I do, as you can see. And they also have much bigger engines than I do, as you can see. After that, I flew up into Poland, great place. Then I flew into Russia. When I told people I was going into Russia, they said, Jesus, we're not going to see you again. Do you know what? They're the nicest people you can meet, honestly. Very, very generous as well. Constantly trying to give me gifts. This frozen fish and whiskey wasn't much use, but it was a thought that count, right? After that, I carried on. It's an open cockpit aircraft, so you can see there's no better way to fly. This is the best way to fly, trust me. I wanted to try and speak to as many kids as I could. This is in Yakutsk in Siberia. They couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak Russian. And they smiled at me for an hour whilst I spoke to a translator. I'll never see them again, but I hope they remember the day that British lunatic came in, sharing stories of fun and adventure. After that, I flew out across the Bering Straits. It starts to get quite cold at this point. I then routed down into Alaska, into Canada. I was almost struck by lightning, actually, in Alaska. It was quite dangerous. So I had to land, and I landed on a road. Thankfully, out in Alaska, the roads are not quite the same as there. They're very long, very big, nothing really about. And I pulled into, it just so happened that there was a service station. So I landed on the road, and about half a mile down, I pulled into a service station. It was like a scene out of a James Bond film. Everyone just stopped and was looking at me while I filled the aircraft up. And then I left the next day. I carried on down to Golden Gate Bridge, and then I had to get across. Sometimes you'll find yourself in positions in life where great opportunities come your way, but you've got to be ready for them. And this opportunity, I was flying around Alcatraz, actually, and I thought to myself, I'm never, ever going to be here again doing this. And I came down level with the Golden Gate Bridge, and I thought, I have no choice. I have got to go underneath this. Now, to be honest with you guys, this is a little bit of a gray area, but I thought, well, sometimes it's better to say sorry than it is to ask, right? So there it is, the famous Golden Gate Bridge.
That's it, guys. Golden Gate Bridge. Woo!
I then had to get across the other side of America. You all know where that is. I then flew back up into I couldn't fly that right across the Atlantic. Obviously, I don't have the range. So I flew up into Greenland. I don't know why they call it Greenland. It's pretty white. Then across to Iceland, and I landed back. And 6 months later, I arrived back at Popham and in Basingstoke. And I set a Guinness World Record. And there you go. I managed to do it. But actually, do you know something? I say to kids, there is so much opportunity in this world. This world is oozing with opportunity. But nothing's going to knock on your door and say, surprise. But all you have to do is just put yourself out there, and you'll be amazed at the things that comes your way. And I spoke to Steve. It was the best part of a year ago. I think Steve contacted me, and I thought, it's really easy for me to stand here and share some stories. I can do that. It's not a problem. But what else can I do? And I thought, you know something? You know, it takes quite a lot of effort to keep the things going. What Steve is trying to do here. And I thought, I know what I can do. I still have this aircraft. And so I thought, what we'll do, if you guys are up for it, it's a bit cold now, but perhaps in the summer next year, if you fancy it, anyone here, come and fly with me. I'll take you out for the whole day. I live down south. It's a little bit of a way, but you can make a nice weekend of it. We'll fly over to the Isle of Wight. There's a beautiful pub right on the runway, just next to it. You can fly the aircraft as well. You sit in the back there. We'll take that big fuel tank out. You can sit in the back. You can't do anything stupid because I'm there with you. So it's all linked. And you will absolutely love it. It's an incredible way to fly. I've got a fair bit of experience now, guys. I've flown it around the world, so you'll be pretty safe. So if you fancy it, someone can come and do this with me. So, you know, is there anyone here that would give me 300 quid to do this? Oh, by the way, guys, I will pick up the expenses for this. So I'll take you for lunch. I'll put the fuel in. I'll sort all that out. And all the money will go to Steve and his family to keep the Jordan legacy going. I never met Jordan, but I would imagine he'd probably think this was a kind of a cool thing to do. And I just thought, how can I help? So who's going to go? Okay, there were quite a few hands for 300. Jesus Christ. Woo. All right, who'll give me 500? Boom, there's a man. We've got this beautiful blonde lady is offering 600. Are you going to let her? 800, nice one. So if you're going to give me 800, the chances are there's a hand going up at the back for 1,000. So you're up for 1,000. Who's going to beat that? Yes, sir. That's 1,200 to you. 1,300, nice one. Who's up for 1,500? 1,500. You're the man. Right, come on. Starting to get a bit serious. The lady at the back is not having this. She's just put her hand up for 1,800. 1,800. We may as well get to 2,000, guys. You've just put your hand up at the back for 2,000. This is going to be an incredible opportunity, I promise you. You are going to love it. You really are. So we're at £2,000. 2,400, sir. 2,300. Well, look behind you. She's put her hand up for 2,500, my man. So there's 2,500. 2,500. Come on. 2,700? 2,750? Okay, well, we may as well get to 3. Okay, we're up at 3. So this is all going to go back in to Steve and the family and to keep this going. So we're at £3,000. So we had one hand at 3,000. Just put your hand up again. It was the lady, the good-looking lady. Excellent. Right, 3,000. But you know what? I don't want anyone to go empty-handed. So, ma'am, blonde hair with the glasses, put your hand back up. You're going to do it for 3,000. Boom, I'll do both of you on separate days. Just like that, we've raised 6 grand. So there you go. So there, yeah. What we'll do, I'll come and have a chat with you. I'm not going to go anywhere yet. And if the guys will get your details, they'll sort all the payment stuff out. I will just make sure and I will take care that you have the best weekend ever. Oh, and by the way, bring your family down. You know, if you've got family, bring them down. I'll take them for a quick spin as well. And you'll absolutely love it. So there you go. That's me done. I think I've gone well over my allotted time, but we've done something.
I have no idea what's going on today. Does anyone really have no idea at all? James, that's just incredible. Thank you so much. Not only for inspiring us, I think they're just in terms of what can be done in life. And I think what an example of what can be done in the space of about 2 or 3 minutes. Just absolutely incredible. I must admit.